Hi viewers, this is Nisma Amir with another episode of our amazing program Meet the CEO, जिसका मकसद है पाकिस्तान के कामयाब तरीन CEOs को डिस्कवर करना और आपसे मिलवाना, so that you can learn from their success and the struggles behind their journey. Today we're going to meet Mr. Todd Shea, founder and CEO of CDRS. Hi Todd, it's a pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you so much. To start off, I would want you to go back and tell us how this entire professional journey of yours started.
So basically, it's been a very long and winding road. I started out from a very young age, just interested in music.
Okay.
And I went for that fully as a career.
Okay.
And was doing very well. But when 9/11 happened, I was in New York City and saw that whole thing happen before my eyes, and pretty much was there to do a concert for a lot of record companies.
Okay.
A guy named Sid Bernstein, who had brought the Beatles and the Rolling Stones to America in the 60s, who still had a lot of clout in the music business and knew everybody, he had signed me. And
Wow.
he had set up a showcase for September 12th at CBGB's nightclub with all of these record label people. And unfortunately, 9/11 happened the day before.
Yeah.
And I was just getting ready to rehearse for my show that day when I saw the towers on fire from my hotel window. And I went down there and started working. I worked there for a week, and it really changed my whole life and whole perspective. In music, I always did want to do things for humanity and charity through my music career. I realized by working there that I was kind of practicing logistics by doing my music career and all the traveling and all the things you have to do as a working musician to make it in the business. You know, so you're doing all these things, including fixing the band van when it breaks down in the middle of nowhere, calling the radio stations and recording the music, getting paid at the end of the night, and taking all your equipment down, and all these things that you have to do when you're running a band. That was a kind of like practice. When 9/11 happened, I was able to use a lot of those skills in logistics to give people help that needed it down at ground zero, people that needed supplies and things. So it was 9/11 that changed everything to where after that I wanted to do relief work.
So basically it was 9/11 that basically hit a chord that, you know, this is what would drive you and you want to work for the greater good. But I'm sure that there must be personality traits in you before 9/11 as well that would want to work for humanity and for the greater good of the people. So it was specifically 9/11 that, you know, made you give this track that I have to work for the people and for the humanity.
Yeah, and this is just speaking for myself.
Okay.
I'm not speaking or putting down anyone else. For me, the continued selfish pursuit of fame and fortune after what I experienced at 9/11 and what I knew that I was capable of, because I didn't know I was capable of operational disaster relief before 9/11. I never even thought about it. I never had any training.
You were pursuing music.
Yeah, and it just came to be, this thing happened, and while I was down there, I realized after working there a week that I had some skills to do operational disaster relief work and abilities to do that. And so after that, it seemed like a selfish pursuit. And I just lost the desire. And you have to have a lot of desire. You have to really want it, because the music business is tough. And if you don't really want it, then it's not going to happen. So I really lost my desire at that time and really wanted to pursue doing humanitarian work.
That's amazing. That's very impressive, by the way. Because you know, at one end you have this music industry which is glamorous and it's about your passion and your, you know, like your creativity, and then this is a complete other direction. So I think you were meant to do this, definitely.
Yes. So my mother passed away when I was 12.
Okay.
Music saved me.
Okay.
But it was actually my mother and her idea about the world that she instilled in me before she died,
the values
that I think started the spark of that humanitarian spirit and that humanitarian work. Because I remember there was one night where, and this is not maybe a month before she actually passed away, we were in the car and we were going somewhere, and traffic on the Washington DC Beltway was very bad, as it usually is. and there was so many tail lights and headlights from oncoming cars on the highway, and there was just thousands of cars. And I remember her saying to me, you know, see all of these headlights and tail lights, they just look like a bunch of lights, but actually in every car there's human beings, and they all have their triumphs and tragedies and good times and bad times.
True.
And she said that, you know, we're all human beings, so no matter where we are, even on the other side of the earth, we should care about each other.
Care about it. That's great. That's great. How did you land in Pakistan? It was the earthquake which brought you here. And then just tell us more about that journey. How did this entire thing happen? How did you get to know about the earthquake? And then how did you make your mind that I have to go to Pakistan? I want to know that initial journey of yours of coming here to Pakistan.
Sure. Well, after 9/11, I went to several places. I went to Central America. I went to Sri Lanka after the tsunami, which was in the beginning of 2005. I went there in Sri Lanka, where there was a high death toll from the South Asian tsunami. Basically, I came back to America from that deployment, and Hurricane Katrina happened in Louisiana. And I went down there and I stayed there for about a month. And literally the day that I got back from deploying at Hurricane Katrina, there was this earthquake in Pakistan. And I literally had walked in the door. My son, Justin, was about 16 at the time. And we sat down to a pizza, and I thought I'm going to take a little break because I've been on these disaster deployments. And we turned on the television, and earthquake in Pakistan was all over the media. And I was still kind of in disaster relief mode, just coming from one disaster. So I thought to myself, and I had a feeling, a compulsion that drove me that I should go there. So before I even figured out how I was getting there, and that's something about my personality, I always figure out, I make a decision to do something, then I figure out later how I'll do it. Some people think about how they'll do it before they decide to do it. Definitely. So I just jump right in, then I figure out how it's going to happen.
How different did you find Pakistan once you came here and you explored the country and you met the people, be it in an emergency situation, in a disaster situation?
Well, first of all, in a disaster situation, and I've been to 26 active disaster zones in the last 21 years in more than 10 countries at this point. And so what I've learned, one thing I've learned is that when you meet people and it's not a disaster time, you get a little bit of everything. And a lot of people, they'll portray themselves in a certain way. But when it's in a disaster zone, you actually see
the vulnerable side, the actual side.
Yes, the actual, the real, you get the real deal, right? And so I came to Pakistan with an open mind. I came as an individual citizen of the world, a human being who believes that the surface of the earth, we're all earthlings. And that's how I felt about Pakistanis. I'm going to see human beings there that need help. And so when I got here, I was a little surprised. I met, like when I got off the helicopter and landed in this village in Azad Kashmir, the first person I met on ground was a young lieutenant in the army who spoke English better than Americans because he had learned the British proper English. And I was like,
with the proper grammar.
Yeah, so right from the right from hitting the ground, I realized that everything wasn't as it seemed based on the perceptions of the media. So I had this very, very strong feeling after spending time with people of Pakistan, how strong they are. You know, I met people from the village, I met people from the army, people from the other NGOs like Pakistan Red Crescent and whatnot. And then individuals would come from as far away as Karachi that came up just to do good and help. And I found the people to be here very strong in their faith.
Resilient.
Pakistanis have been through everything. And yet they still persevere. They still have hope. I meet the young people of this country who have so much hope and so much energy to do good. And so part of why I want to stay here is to be part of maybe giving them a hand in doing, as an assistant, you know, to assisting these young heroes.
We're very glad for that thought process of yours. Now that we were on the topic and you were telling us that you've been to various countries where disasters have hit and emergencies have hit, what is that first thought process? Have you never have had a thought of fearfulness, uncertainty that I'm going into this uncertain situation, something might happen to me? How do you deal with that thought process, or that does not cross your mind at all?
It doesn't cross my mind because part of it is having been through so many dangerous situations and learning how to deal with dangerous situations, the other part of it is that I believe that we have a purpose. We all have a purpose. Sometimes we don't find it right away. In my case, it was also some time before I found my true calling in life. But when you have a purpose and a passion to do something, then you'll put yourself in risky positions. And I faced so many dangerous situations in my existence that I'm really thinking of the mission. And then I also have that feeling that if I die doing this, helping other people to not suffer, then that is really, truly the best way to go out.
Any one incident or one disaster or one situation where you went and it just completely blew your mind, and it was like, it had an impact on your mind, and it was worse than what you were expecting. Which one of those were that?
Well, I think the Pakistan earthquake was worse than I expected, because we had heard that a lot of people had died, but the number of, and that was bad, but the number of people who were very badly injured was a huge number. Broken bones, injuries to the head because the concrete had come down on and injured people's heads, and so there was a tremendous amount of injury and suffering of children that I had never seen before. And it just, every disaster, people think, because I've been to many disasters, that, oh, it's not a big deal. In some sense, you get used to being professional and getting the job done. But I'm telling you, every disaster I've been to, they're all different. They have their different set of circumstances. They're all heartbreaking. Because you can't see a family who has lost a family member or a child or has lost their home and everything they ever knew. In some cases, whole villages gone. So it's very heartbreaking to see.
Now moving on to CDRS, which is a Comprehensive Disaster Response Service. I want you to tell us more about it so that there is more awareness regarding it, and also how did it come into being?
After the earthquake, I've been to many countries even since then in various disasters, but Pakistan was the only country where the people after the emergency phase said, please stay. We need a lot of help. And people were giving so much love. And I thought, it feels right. This feels like home, and this feels like where God wants me to be to start something. And in my life's trajectory, when I came to Pakistan and did the mission there, it was almost as though it was the right time and place for me, not just to be an individual volunteer, but to actually start my own thing. And the universe just opened that up. Some friends from the Army, active brigadiers in the Army that I'd worked with and became like brothers to me, they said, we'll help you register. We'll point you in the right direction and things. So people in the village that were asking me to stay, people in the AGK Department of Health that I was working with, helping them with the doctors in the hospitals in the remote areas, they asked me to stay, people in the village. So it just kind of came to this point where I felt very comfortable here, felt very much at home with the people. And so it just became something that just happened almost like a natural progression of my life's trajectory. And it just felt right. And, when you go do something with intention and for the right reasons, Allah will open doors for you, and He opened up so many doors for me that I decided to walk through that door and stick around. And even then, though, I wasn't thinking that I'll stay 17 years. I thought I'll stay for a couple years, and then my team on ground, they'll take it over. But then more disasters happen and more things happen, and the more need that was there, the more I fell in love with the people here and the children here. And of course, the Khana, the mountains, the culture, the beauty. If you go to a Pakistani wedding, it's like going to a beautiful, colorful flower garden. It's like so much beauty just at one of these functions. And my first wedding was during an earthquake. In the backdrop, the house was destroyed, but they still had the wedding, and they had the festivities. And it was such a beautiful affair. In America, everybody wears the same color. So it's a little boring, to be honest with you. And this was like, wow, there's every color in the book here. So there's so much colorful culture here and beauty in the culture that maybe Pakistanis, because they grew up in it and it's just part of them, that maybe they take it a little bit for granted. But for somebody like me, it's like, whoa, the food, the music, the people, the land, the mountains. You have every ecosystem that you can imagine in the world, from mangroves and beaches all the way to plains, to smaller mountains, to the biggest mountains in the world every season. So really, Pakistan literally has it all.
Welcome back to our show. So moving back to CDRS, I would want you to tell us more on the lines that how has it been able to serve the people of Pakistan in a nutshell?
Sure.
Like what categories of things that and projects that you guys are dealing with right now?
Sure. So when I first decided to register after the earthquake, my team and I had been helping volunteer doctors with all their logistics needs. So that kind of dovetailed into helping to reconstitute, even in tents at first, then in buildings that had survived the earthquake, and then constructing buildings for remote hospitals and clinics in very difficult areas where the hospital had been damaged badly or destroyed. So we started from logistics and getting these doctors over to then actually helping the AJK Department of Health with establishing these destroyed hospitals and giving healthcare to the people as soon as possible. And so that's what we did through the first few years. Then there was the SWAT crisis, which happened. And we were asked by one of our associates that we had worked with, who was a professor at IU Medical College, if we would come and work with Edie, who I just learned about at that time, who had came for the SWAT crisis. So we went there and we started helping there. So basically, in the first years of our existence, whether it's floods or earthquakes, we would, or IDP's crisis, we would bring doctors and medicines, and then also some relief goods like the medicines and the food and water and tents. So that was the basics of life that are needed when a disaster or crisis situation happens. Then Imran Khan Foundation asked us to work with them in Banu during the North Waziristan army operation, when millions of people had fled North Waziristan and were living in Banu and Lucky Marvin and Di Khan. So I had worked with them a little bit during the floods. So when this happened in North Waziristan, they asked me to come. So we helped establish hospitals there and worked with basically mobile medical teams going to all these places where IDPs were living. Because of a conservative society, even ladies that were very sick, they weren't wanting to go out. So we had to bring the services to them. So this was a big funded thing from Imran Khan Foundation. After that, fortunately for Pakistan, after 2015, up till the COVID crisis, there wasn't as many disasters, floods and things. It was a little bit calm. So what we were able to do is start doing more development work at that point.
That's what
our team was able to still have our disaster relief capability.
But there are so many other things that you guys are doing.
Exactly. So our disaster relief team right now is in Balochistan. We can go anywhere in Pakistan in less than 24 hours. We can deploy. We have youth teams already in many of these places that can start laying the groundwork for teams. We've delivered 500 monthly food packages, 1,700 ciprofloxacin infusions for the cholera outbreak that's happening in interior Balochistan. But basically, after the mission with Imran Khan Foundation in Banu, we started doing water projects. And we started helping special patients, like people who had been badly injured, road accident or earthquake or whatever it was. They were in a wheelchair. Maybe they couldn't afford their children's school fees, or they needed some operation. So we started helping people that were in a really bad shape and needed major help. And they were so poor they would never be able to afford. So we did these type of things. We started building schools.
You guys are also working on animal welfare as well.
Yes, that was later. From the very beginning of the earthquake, I'm an animal lover. So in an informal basis, I would always help the animals and feed the animals. And if I found one injured, we'd take it and get treatment. But a couple of years ago, we got a big grant from a Pakistani American who loves animals. And he said, I'm going to give you this money. And it was a very, very good sum. He said, but I want you to use this for animals because animals need help in Pakistan. So we started a project called the Benji Project after a Hollywood dog called Benji that you may or may not remember, but it was a famous dog that was a street dog that became famous because they rescued somebody from a bank robbery or something like that. But what we have been able to accomplish is we have built and run Pakistan's very first facility dedicated to trap, neuter, vaccinate, release. So all the dogs and cats that we get are vaccinated for rabies. They're put in the facility, given neutering and spaying to help for the Islamically permissible, environmentally safe and scientifically effective depopulation of stray dogs and cats. So that's Pakistan history. The first dedicated facility for this. And then we've also started, it's humble, but we've started the very first ambulance service, 6 ambulances in Pakistan for dogs and cats.
And that's amazing.
So yeah, so when somebody needs an ambulance, then we just ask them for the fuel so we can keep the thing going.
Running,
and
as you mentioned that you got a donation and it was specifically for the animal wing, but this entire project is funded through donations, right?
Yes.
So what's the process of that, and what is your majority donor base like? What's
so
on that?
It's about 90 to 95% Pakistani American. We have some Pakistani British, some Pakistanis in the UAE, and some here. But most, because I'm from America and got to know a lot of the doctors
in the
initial
there, contacts over there, yeah.
Sure, like all these Pakistani American doctors that I met during the earthquake. A lot of them became friends and saw our work on ground. They went back
and did the word of mouth for you.
Yes, and then they invite me back. I go to their homes or their communities. APNA, the Association of Physicians of Pakistani Descent of North America, they've supported us over $250,000 in the last couple years of COVID. We've fed people together. Hundreds and thousands of people have been fed with food packs and other COVID-related things like 50 hospital beds for the COVID ward.
What was your strategy or initial reaction when COVID started to feel real? Like initially we all weren't taking it that seriously, right? And then it hit hard. And what was the role that CDRS was able to play at that time?
Well, for me personally, I've been in so many disaster zones and so many disasters that this was like, yeah, it's bad,
but not
we're
bad.
gonna, I start thinking of, okay, how do we respond? How do we work this to the benefit of the people affected? How can we help make it better? Whatever it is, even as dire of a situation as it might have seemed, there's always some way you can respond and you can start thinking of, instead of panicking, thinking, okay, what do we have to do to get through this? And so I was in US on a fundraising tour. COVID got serious, like you said, really quickly. And then I couldn't get a flight to Pakistan because everything was shut down. So I literally sat in America, basically quarantined because you couldn't go anywhere even there. So I was sitting there for 4 months, directing donations, talking to people on the phone. Thank goodness for a phone and internet connection. I was able to keep in touch with my team and get our relief efforts moving. So what we did with COVID mostly was to, and we fed people even in America. I was working with a group of Pakistani Americans that were feeding poor in America.
That's great.
Because our organization is registered in America and registered in Pakistan. And so, but our biggest effort was feeding people here who had been economically affected, the poor who lost their jobs, and we did that all over Pakistan. Every province was covered, every area we did work in every place.
That's amazing. Initially, when you were setting up CDRS and you had made this decision that you're going to be in Pakistan, it must be a big leap of faith. We have to be honest, like, leaving a country and settling into a new country. What were the challenges that you faced? Be it they can be personal ones or even professionally when you were setting up the organization, any organizational or law-making related challenges, what were those and how did you deal with them?
Really the biggest challenges, because we did have people that were willing to help us with registration, things like that. The biggest challenges were just getting fundraising, keeping it going, keeping the funds coming in. That's always a work and a challenge. As far as the work and as far as the ground realities, I mean, to be honest with you, in certain situations where many people might panic or think I can't do this, I mean, it's not because I'm an American, it's because growing up, I faced so many dangerous situations. I faced so many things that prepared me for my future, even though I didn't know it was going to prepare me for that. So people ask me, how are you so good in disaster relief? And I say, well, because my life has been a disaster. So if your life has been a disaster, then then when these things happen, you can respond. So there has been challenges, but
nothing that you couldn't deal with.
Yeah, we've been able to deal with it.
Right.
And every year, every disaster, every situation that came upon us, every difficulty, every challenge financially, we somehow made it through and then got even more support after that. So it's like we rise up a level and then again we get challenged again. And so I know the challenges are coming. Whenever something happens where it's a big challenge, I look skyward and I say, Allah, I know that there's a reason for this, and this is now something I'm expecting. So I'm expecting it already. So I'm already thinking that
what are you going to do about it?
And the next, and then of course when it happens, it's always something new and something maybe unanticipated that throws you a curveball. But we've learned to react to unpredictability. So you just kind of build that into your thought modeling and your system that expect the unexpected.
And how about the aspect of government's involvement? Like, how has the collaboration been, or is it the support that you wanted, or you expected more, or there should be things done differently? What has been the role of the government with CDRS?
Well, we worked very closely with the AJK Department of Health and the Federal Health Minister at the time of the earthquake, and with the Army, including Lieutenant General Farooq Ahmed Khan, who was the Relief Commissioner. So we worked with all of these people very well. And from that point until now, we have always been willing to work with the government. Now, after the emergency phase of the earthquake, for a few years, what ended up happening, I think it started with the army operation in North Waziristan, and then Chaudhry Nassar, at the time the Interior Minister, and the establishment and the government, they decided to have the National Action Plan. And I think that was a very good thing, that they put the NGOs in with it. A lot of people were complaining, and because the NGOs for the first time had their feet held to the fire and got checked out thoroughly. I told my staff, and you could ask them, I said, this is the best thing ever happened to us. This is something that Pakistan should have done, and it's a good thing that they're doing. So from that point until now, the government has been very proactive in checking NGOs out from the security point of view to the financial point of view. They do all the checking, all the agencies. So eventually, after we get through this process of being checked, we're going to come out on top, and we're going to be, we've never been shut down by the government at any time. For 17 years, we've proven ourselves day by day by day. We have the records. We have now PCP certification, Pakistan Center for Philanthropy. We've been checked by everybody. So this is actually a process that was good for us to go through.
Which worked in your benefit.
Yes, and so the Pakistan government, I applaud them, and I encourage them to continue holding everyone to account. Including the NGOs, so that the good ones can emerge and be supported and facilitated, and those that aren't doing can be shut down or reassigned.
Welcome back to our show. Okay, so we're talking about the donations, given that you have a US-based donorship as well, and how do you make sure that, the donors are feeling fully confident and the process is transparent, that their funds are, being utilized at the right places? How do you build that trust factor with your donors?
So we have reports in soft copy and in hard copy that anyone can request anytime. They can come visit anytime our finance department, or talk to our finance department. But basically, the biggest evidence of our transparency and trustability is a couple things. Number one, we are certified, one of the very few, I think there's only 1,500 organizations in Pakistan out of 90,000 registered NGOs, almost 100,000, and 30,000 active registered NGOs, because some are inactive. We are one of the very few that has the Pakistan Center for Philanthropy certification. So, there's it's a very good process. And then we have FBR tax exemption here, which is also another process that is very involved now, that they don't just give anybody. And then in America, we are tax exempt also. So we're registered and tax exempt. So we have all of this documentation.
So you're covering all benchmarks of transparency.
And we can offer tax exemption to donors,
that's great.
Pakistani taxpayers as well as US taxpayers.
That's great.
One other very important thing is we have a lot of donors that come and work with us or visit us.
Okay, so when you're inducting team members or volunteers, or let's say a young individual wants to become part of CDRS, is there a certain sort of training or certain sort of process that they have to go through?
Well, basically, for me, what is important is somebody's passion and somebody's energy and commitment to the cause that and the things that we're doing.
I think that's crucial.
Sure, and it always helps, depending on whether it's somebody that wants to volunteer at our House of Blessings for Widows and Orphans, or go on a mission, a medical mission. Obviously, if somebody's a doctor or a child psychologist or has some kind of expertise in that regard, or somebody who's a logistics expert to go on a disaster mission, those things all help. And we certainly look at all of the capabilities and education level that people have. But I go on my own gut feeling when I talk to somebody of what is their level of commitment, what is their passion, and then you give somebody a chance and you see how honest they are and how available they are and how committed they are. So this is, we give everybody a couple months probationary period. And then if they like us and we like them, then we keep them. And a lot of my team has been with me for 17 years. I have people with my organization that have been with me since the earthquake or since the floods.
I think definitely this field or this direction is not for those who are not passionate about it, who are not passionate to serve the humanity, definitely. Moving on now, you've worked very closely with the issues, with the disasters, with let's say those fighting to be above the poverty line, the lower class and all of that. Observing all of that, what in your opinion is the burning issue in Pakistan right now that needs to be worked on so that we can have a better future?
Well, CDRS is a gap-filling organization. We fill gaps in the system that bigger organizations doing bid work may have missed that area or that place or that particular sphere of need in a certain sector or a certain geographical area. So we go to remote areas and things like that. As far as Pakistan's serious issues, what I see as the most serious issues are the population outgrowing the resources, the finite resources. So Pakistan does have to be careful. And families now that, you know, at one time having 10 children in a family was
no big deal.
Was something that needed to be done. It was good for the survival of the family. Now people should think about 1 or 2 children. Just because the situation in Pakistan with the population and the resources, particularly because of the environmental effects of climate change, which we're seeing now with these terrible floods and the heat and everything. So as we see these problems coming worse, and then if the population grows and grows and grows, then those problems are going to run into each other more and more every day. The good thing about Pakistan is really the youth of this country are brilliant. They just, in some cases, because of poverty and lack of resources and lack of systemic structures for their success, they need those things. They have incredible brilliance, incredible talent, the human resources of this nation. And it's good that it's a young nation because then you have the energy there. But what we have to make sure that we do is give those young people all the opportunities to succeed and not leave them behind just because of lack of resources or lack of institutional structures. So institution building has to be brought here. Disaster relief and NGOs can be part of emergency problems. They can help to fill gaps in the system, but it has to be the government and the people.
They cannot elevate these issues, definitely.
Yes, it has to be.
They don't have the capacity to do that.
It has to be a national effort. And with climate change, Pakistan is one of those countries that is going to be most affected because of the glaciers and because of the where Pakistan
the terrain that we have. CDRS has also been actively working on projects related to women empowerment, and I really want you to tell us more about it, because since the past few years there's been a change. Women are now coming out of their houses, they're completing their education, they're working, they're competing in all fields. So what projects have you guys been involved in regards to this?
Well, I think it's a great thing that even in remote areas, when it comes to women's empowerment, I'm glad that the nation is, even in conservative areas and remote areas, are waking up to the fact that without giving half the population, the women,
economic opportunity,
economic opportunities for their families, that it's just going to really harm the nation more and more as we go into the future. So I'm glad that that's happened.
Definitely.
And so what CDRS tries to do in women's empowerment is we have some programs, like for instance, in Multan, there is a group of differently abled ladies. They're in wheelchairs.
Okay.
And we are teaching them, we have a 3-month course for beautician, then a 3-month course for computer, a 3-month course for stitching, and different things that, even though they're in a wheelchair, things that they can do from home to earn an income.
That's amazing.
So we have that training program. We're also working with Musarat Mispa on a new program to help ladies become either beauticians that work in one of her salons or any salon, or start their own home salon. We also have built several sewing centers and giving sewing machines. The widows have learned to bake, and they're making cookies and cakes, and we've started House of Blessings Kitchen Baking Company. And so hopefully someday we'll compete with Super Biscuits. We also have several women executives here at House of Blessings, our animal welfare project. We have veterinarians who are female, who are the boss, and House of Blessings, the boss. And we have Katrina Hussain, a journalist for many years, who's now heading our work in Karachi.
Okay, so when we talk about CDRS, what does the future hold? What projects are in pipeline? And generally, what vision do you hold for its future?
So the future of CDRS is going to be tied to a couple things. We're always going to have our disaster relief capability and all that experience in case something happens. Whatever happens, we can respond to that. But water is a huge project for us, and we have support for that. So into the years to come, we're going to be doing whatever we can to deal with making sure people have clean drinking water for themselves and their livestock. So that's crucial. The other thing is to expand our House of Blessings for widows and orphans, because we see so many widows and orphans, and also street children and differently abled children, and we want to envelop them with love and support so that they can be everything that they have the potential to be, and that they don't fail just because they didn't get
the opportunity or like the support.
So we want to expand that, because so much need is there.
Well, I think great things are in pipeline, and I hope
Inshallah.
that all of those come through as you vision them to be. Now, when we look at your journey, Todd, it's a very impressive, a very wholesome and inspiring journey that you've had, from where you started as a musician and now what you're doing for the greater good of people. Who has been your inspiration or role model?
So many. I mean, so many people. Edie. Dr. Muhammad Amjad Saqib, both became friends, and you know, these are two just amazing people. But at the same time, I meet people in a village
and
who
they would inspire you.
Nobody ever heard of them, but they're doing tremendous work in their village or in their area. So literally there's not just one or two, but there's thousands of people in Pakistan and outside of Pakistan that have been very inspiring.
And I think as you keep on meeting people, people keep on inspiring you on different levels and aspects. Tell me, what is your idea of happiness? What is happiness to you?
Having a lot of people who you love and who love you. Family. My 31-year-old son and my 1-year-old son. My amazing wife, and my wonderful staff and donors and supporters. So loving and being loved by a lot of people, and having a purpose where you get up in the morning and you know that you are living your purpose that you are made to live. Then that is happiness for me.
And what is your first instinct, for example, when things get stressful and you're under some sort of stress, which is very natural. There are times when a person feels stressed. What is your first instinct that, okay, I'm going to go do this and relieve my stress? It can be anything.
Go play with the baby, Mohammed Sultan, and seeing his smile erases
You're an obsessed
everything.
dad, by the way.
Or I can get the guitar out and play the guitar, or I'll get on the internet and read Wikipedia things, or learn about something that I need to know more about. So there are little escapes here and there. I work 16 to 18 hours a day, and when I sleep at night, I'm dreaming about the work I have to do. So being a father and a husband gets in between all the work, I find time, just enough time to do that as well. But I'm always working, always on the phone, always talking to my staff.
And given that you just said that you would pick up your guitar and play something, and you've been a musician yourself, who has been your favorite musician of all times, let's say? Who used to inspire
Pink Floyd and Alice in Chains. And then in Pakistan, Sana Marvi, Karkalain Baloch.
She has a nice voice.
Just amazing, one of a kind.
And what about one favorite international destination?
In America, there's so many beautiful places. So there is the Pacific Northwest, Mount Rainier in Seattle area. is such a beautiful, beautiful place that if I wasn't living in Pakistan, perhaps I would
be living
live
there.
there.
Great, great. Now towards summing up our conversation, I would want to know that you've had a very different journey, and a journey where you think about people, you're working for the people. What has this journey taught you so far?
No good deed goes unpunished. But it's also taught you that if you follow your heart with intention and you never give up, no matter how difficult it is, just keep on plowing through it, trying to find solutions, trying to stay positive, fighting through it in whatever way you can. So this is how I've done things.
And on an ending note, I would want, because a lot of our audience is youth as well, definitely. So I would want you to give a message out to our young individuals, entrepreneurs, people who are looking into starting their careers, their lives. What message would you give them?
Well, I would say that have great tenacity, to never give up, no matter what it is. Every door that closes, 10 more open.
Definitely.
Instead of looking at it sad like a door is closed, look at it that all the opportunities now you can pursue. That door is closed, go to another door. And it will be hard, and Allah tests us all, but you'll find your way. So my other advice is to take advice and the example of everyone, but then take that and use what you can and throw away what you don't need or what isn't going to work for you.
Very correct.
And then follow your own path and your own heart.
Definitely.
That will take you where you want to go.
I think that's the perfect practical and the perfect ending note that we must follow. Thank you so much, Todd, for your time, for sharing your experiences, your entire journey, and we are so thankful that you're here and you are giving your energy, your life, your time to this country and to many others wherever there's needed. We are very, very glad for that.
Well, I'm thankful to you and to Discover Pakistan for having me on. It's a big honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this was a conversation with Mr. Todd Shea, a very inspiring conversation where we got to know about his experiences and how he has given his entire life working for the humanity, for the greater good of people, definitely inspiring all of us as well. For more such conversations, keep on watching our show, Meet the CEO, only on Discover Pakistan.